Welcome to our video, where we explore the lives of the 5 most dangerous and wicked women in the Bible. These women, driven by ambition, betrayal, and deceit, left a trail of destruction in their wake. Their stories are not only shocking, but also filled with lessons about the consequences of unchecked power and the destructive force of evil. If you're interested in deepening your understanding of biblical history and the lessons it holds, you're in the right place. Make sure to watch closely as we unravel the actions of these infamous figures and their impact on the people around them. Every detail matters because these women, though separated by time, still serve as powerful warnings for us today. Before we dive in, don't forget to like this video. Your support helps us create more content like this, and we greatly appreciate it. Also, subscribe to stay updated on all of our future videos as we continue to bring you powerful insights from the Bible. By paying close attention to each story, you will discover the common threads that connect these women and the reasons behind their actions. More importantly, you'll see how justice and righteousness ultimately prevailed, proving that no matter how strong evil seems, it never triumphs in the end. So sit back, hit that like button, and prepare to uncover the lessons hidden in the lives of the 5 most dangerous women in biblical history. Let's get started. Jezebel, the despotic queen and idol worshiper. Jezebel is one of the most notorious female figures in the Bible, remembered for her despotic behavior and strong devotion to idols. As the wife of King Ahab, who ruled Israel during the 9th century BC, Jezebel was responsible for introducing the worship of Baal, a pagan deity, into a kingdom that was supposed to follow the God of Israel. Her marriage to Ahab politically united the northern kingdom of Israel with Phoenicia, from where she hailed, but it also brought devastating spiritual and moral consequences for the Israelite people. From the outset, it is clear that Jezebel did not regard Israel's religious customs with reverence. She encouraged and indeed established the worship of Baal and Asherah, practices that involved idolatry and rituals that directly violated God's commandments. This caused a significant rupture with Israelite traditions, and many in the kingdom of Israel began to follow foreign idols, straying from their ancestral faith. Moreover, Jezebel not only promoted idolatry but actively persecuted those who resisted this new religious order. Prophets of God were killed at her command, and among her greatest targets was the prophet Elijah, one of the strongest defenders of the worship of Yahweh, the God of Israel. Her relentless persecution of God's servants exemplifies her ruthless nature and determination to maintain control, even if it meant violently silencing any opposition. One of the most famous episodes revealing Jezebel's cold and manipulative character is the story of Naboth, an Israelite who owned a vineyard desired by King Ahab. Ahab wanted to buy Naboth's land, but Naboth refused to sell it because it was a family inheritance, protected by Israelite law. Faced with Naboth's refusal, Ahab became dejected, but it was Jezebel who took the initiative to resolve the problem in a brutal and insensitive way. Jezebel, disregarding Israel's laws of justice and morality, orchestrated a plot to falsely accuse Naboth of blasphemy against God and the king, which led to Naboth's execution. Once Naboth was dead, his vineyard was then given to Ahab, as Jezebel had planned. This act of betrayal, greed, and murder clearly demonstrated Jezebel's unrestrained ambition and corrupt use of power. She did not hesitate to use her control over Ahab and her position as queen to satisfy her selfish desires. The impact of Jezebel's actions was profound, as it not only showcased her cruelty, but also how deeply her influence had corrupted King Ahab. The king, who was supposed to be a just leader and an example of righteousness for the people of Israel, allowed his wife to manipulate the situation and commit a grave crime without any immediate consequence. This episode, however, did not go unnoticed by God, and the prophet Elijah was sent to declare that divine judgment was about to fall upon Ahab's house and Jezebel herself. Elijah's prophecy foretold that Jezebel would die a brutal death and that her body would be devoured by dogs, a horrible fate, but one fitting for her cruel behavior. This fate emphasizes God's judgment against those who abuse their position of power, promote idolatry, and perpetuate injustice. Delilah, the seductress of Samson, Delilah is known for betraying the strongest man in the Bible, Samson. Although her origins are not entirely clear, Delilah is portrayed as a dangerous woman who, driven by greed, sold Samson to the Philistines. With her seduction and persistence, she managed to uncover the secret of Samson's strength, his Nazirite vow and his untouched hair. After cutting Samson's hair while he slept, she allowed him to be captured and tortured. Delilah's betrayal was a fatal blow to Samson's life and symbolizes the power of seduction and betrayal. Seduction and persuasion. Delilah's subtle power. Delilah first appears in Judges 16, when Samson falls in love with her. The text does not specify if Delilah shared Samson's feelings or had any real emotional attachment. What is clear, however, is that the Philistines, Samson's enemies, saw in Delilah an opportunity to defeat Israel's mighty judge, whose supernatural strength had been a constant threat to them. The Philistines, recognizing Delilah's strategic value, offered her a large sum of money in exchange for helping them discover the secret of Samson's strength. Motivated by greed, Delilah accepted the deal and began her journey of persuasion and manipulation. What stands out in this moment is Delilah's cunning approach. She did not try to deceive Samson immediately, but gradually earned his trust, seeking information slowly. 3 times Delilah attempted to extract the secret of Samson's strength, and each time he gave her a false answer, testing her loyalty. Despite the lies, Delilah did not give up. Her persistence was one of her greatest weapons. She continually pressured Samson, using both her words and her affection to coax him into opening up. In Judges 16, verse 16, the text states that Delilah pressed him daily with her words and urged him, so that his soul was vexed unto death. This behavior exemplifies the power of seduction and emotional manipulation. Delilah did not rely solely on her physical charm, but on a strategy of emotional exhaustion, which eventually led Samson to break. He revealed his greatest secret. His strength was tied to his Nazirite vow, a commitment to God that included never cutting his hair. The betrayal. Samson's tragic downfall. After discovering Samson's secret, Delilah acted quickly. She waited for him to fall asleep, then cut his hair, symbolically breaking the vow he had made to God. Without his hair, Samson lost his strength, and Delilah called the Philistines to capture him. Samson's capture was brutal. He was chained, blinded, and taken as a prisoner by his enemies. The act of cutting Samson's hair, though simple, had profound spiritual consequences. Samson not only lost his physical strength, but also his connection with God at that moment. Delilah, in betraying Samson, did not just hand him over to the Philistines. She also destroyed his identity as a judge and warrior of Israel. She symbolized the role of betrayal as something that goes beyond mere physical loss, reaching into the deepest level of spiritual and emotional destruction. Delilah's story shows us how greed and betrayal can devastate lives. Her motivation was simple: money. However, her actions resulted in a colossal disaster for Samson and for the people of Israel, who had long depended on his strength to resist the Philistines. Delilah's betrayal is one of the Bible's most powerful examples of how personal weaknesses can be exploited by those seeking only their own interests, with no regard for the damage inflicted on others. Athaliah, the queen who shed blood. Athaliah, daughter of Ahab and Jezebel, is a striking figure in the biblical narrative, known for her ruthless ambition and thirst for power. She inherited much of her mother's cruelty and determination, but her reign in Judah would be remembered for its bloodshed and tyranny. As the only woman to sit on the throne of Judah, Athaliah's story stands out as one of political cunning, family betrayal, and idol worship. Her quest for dominance left a trail of devastation, setting her apart as a queen whose legacy was stained with blood. Following the death of her son, King Ahaziah, Athaliah made a bold and violent move to secure the throne for herself. She immediately initiated a campaign to exterminate any potential heirs from the royal line of David, including her own grandchildren. This act of family betrayal and mass murder was unprecedented in Judah's history, and it allowed her to seize power. For 7 years, Athaliah ruled as queen, her reign marked by brutality, and the promotion of idolatry, much like her infamous parents. However, her grip on power would not last forever, as a conspiracy led by the high priest Jehoiada ultimately brought her reign of terror to a violent end. A bloody reign. Athaliah's rise to power. Athaliah's ascent to the throne was driven by a deep hunger for power and control, characteristics she likely inherited from her mother, Jezebel. When her son, King Ahaziah, was killed, Athaliah saw an opportunity to take the throne for herself. What followed was one of the most brutal episodes in the history of Judah. In order to secure her position, Athaliah ordered the execution of all members of the royal family, including her own grandchildren, who were potential heirs to the throne. The royal line of David, which had been preserved for centuries, was nearly wiped out in a single, calculated move. This act of murder was not just a political maneuver. It was a direct attack on the Davidic covenant, which promised that a descendant of David would always sit on the throne of Israel. Athaliah's actions defied this divine promise and demonstrated her complete disregard for the sacred traditions of Judah. Her willingness to shed the blood of her own family for power highlights the depths of her cruelty and ambition. During her 7-year reign, Athaliah encouraged the worship of Baal, further alienating the people of Judah from their faith in Yahweh, the God of Israel. The influence of her mother, Jezebel, who had introduced Baal worship in Israel, was evident in her policies. Athaliah, like Jezebel, sought to replace the worship of God with the worship of idols, leading Judah further into spiritual decline. Her reign was a dark chapter in the history of Judah, as it was marked by both political oppression and religious corruption. However, despite Athaliah's efforts to destroy the royal line of David, one child survived the massacre, Joash, her grandson. Joash was hidden away in the temple of the Lord by his aunt Jehosheba and her husband, the high priest Jehoiada. This act of preservation set the stage for Athaliah's eventual downfall and the restoration of the Davidic line. The fall of Athaliah, a coup and a new beginning. Athaliah's reign, though brutal, was not without resistance. The people of Judah, who had long held the Davidic line in high regard, began to grow restless under her rule. The high priest Jehoiada, a key religious figure in Judah, played a crucial role in plotting her downfall. After years of watching Athaliah's reign of terror, Jehoiada secretly prepared for a coup to restore the rightful heir to the throne, Joash, the young boy who had been hidden in the temple for 6 years. The coup was carefully planned. Jehoiada gathered the temple guards and influential leaders of Judah to make their move. When the time was right, they brought Joash, now 7 years old, out of hiding and crowned him king in a public ceremony at the temple. The people of Judah rejoiced at the coronation of a rightful Davidic king, and Athaliah, hearing the celebration, rushed to the temple to confront the situation. In a moment of desperation, Athaliah cried out, "Treason! Treason!" as she realized her reign had come to an abrupt end. However, the people did not side with her. The coup was successful, and Athaliah was captured and executed outside the temple. Her brutal rule was over, and with her death, the Davidic line was restored to the throne of Judah. The fall of Athaliah not only ended her reign of terror, but also marked a spiritual turning point for Judah. Under the guidance of Jehoiada, King Joash would lead Judah back to the worship of Yahweh, and the temple, which had been neglected under Athaliah's rule, was restored to its former glory. The execution of Athaliah was not merely the end of a political tyrant. It was a symbolic victory for the covenant between God and the house of David. Herodias, the woman who wanted John the Baptist's head. Herodias is remembered in biblical history for her ruthless and vindictive pursuit of John the Baptist's death. Her story is one of revenge, manipulation, and power, centered around her marriage to Herod Antipas, a marriage that John the Baptist publicly condemned. Herodias had been previously married to Herod's brother, making the union with Antipas illicit according to Jewish law. John's outspoken condemnation of this marriage wounded Herodias' pride and placed her in a position of wanting to silence the prophet once and for all. Herodias' vengeance would ultimately result in the gruesome execution of one of the most revered figures in the New Testament. The story of Herodias is not just about personal vengeance, but also about the dangers of power, manipulation, and unchecked desires. Her plot to eliminate John the Baptist highlights her cold calculation, as she used her daughter Salome as a pawn in her deadly scheme. The story reveals how Herodias' desire for control and her resentment of John's moral authority led her to orchestrate one of the most notorious executions in the Bible. Herodias' wounded pride, the root of revenge. The tension between Herodias and John the Baptist begins with John's condemnation of her marriage to Herod Antipas. Herodias was originally married to Herod's brother Herod Philip, but had left him to marry Antipas, a move that violated Jewish law. According to Leviticus 18, verse 16, such a marriage was forbidden, as it was considered incestuous to marry a brother's wife while the brother was still alive. John the Baptist, a fearless and widely respected prophet, did not shy away from denouncing their relationship as sinful. His public reproach of Herod and Herodias struck a nerve, particularly with Herodias, whose pride and status were now under attack. For Herodias, John's criticism was not just a matter of religious rebuke. It was a threat to her power and position as the wife of Herod Antipas. She enjoyed political influence and prestige, but John's denunciation threatened to undermine her authority and legitimacy. Rather than accept the criticism or reflect on the moral implications of her actions, Herodias became consumed with anger and resentment. She saw John as a direct obstacle to her ambitions and sought to eliminate him in order to protect her reputation and secure her status. Herodias' desire for revenge was fueled by her pride and unwillingness to accept any challenge to her authority. This kind of pride, unchecked by moral restraint, led her to plot John's downfall with cold calculation. However, despite her strong desire to see John silenced, Herod protected him for some time, as he feared both the public reaction and John's status as a prophet. Herodias, though, was patient and cunning, waiting for the right moment to strike. The deadly plot, Salome's dance and John's execution. Herodias' moment came during a grand birthday feast for Herod Antipas, a gathering of high-ranking officials, military leaders, and prominent citizens. Herodias saw this as the perfect opportunity to carry out her plan. She knew that Herod, though intrigued by John, was weak-willed and easily influenced, particularly when caught up in the revelry of the feast. At the height of the celebration, Herodias' daughter, Salome, performed a dance for the guests, a dance so pleasing that Herod, in a moment of impulsive generosity, promised to grant her any request she made, even up to half of his kingdom. This moment of weakness was exactly what Herodias had been waiting for. She instructed her daughter to ask for the head of John the Baptist on a platter. Salome, under her mother's influence, made the shocking request to Herod, catching him off guard. Herod was immediately filled with regret, as he respected John and feared the consequences of killing a prophet. However, bound by the public nature of his promise and unwilling to lose face in front of his guests, Herod reluctantly agreed to fulfill Salome's demand. John the Baptist, who had been imprisoned by Herod but kept alive until this point, was executed swiftly. His head was delivered to Salome on a platter, as she had requested, and she in turn presented it to her mother, Herodias. The image of John's severed head on a platter has become one of the most haunting and memorable symbols of the Bible, representing not just physical death, but the triumph of manipulation and vindictiveness over justice and righteousness. Herodias had achieved her goal. John the Baptist, the man who had publicly condemned her, was dead. However, the manner in which she secured this victory highlights the depth of her moral corruption. Herodias' use of her daughter as a tool to achieve her revenge shows her complete disregard for others, even her own family, in pursuit of her selfish desires. Potiphar's wife, the temptress of Joseph. The wife of Potiphar is one of the most infamous characters in the story of Joseph, remembered for her unreciprocated desire and false accusation against a man of integrity. Her relentless attempts to seduce Joseph, a servant in her household, and her subsequent accusation of attempted rape when she was rejected, nearly ruined the life of an innocent man. Potiphar's wife becomes a cautionary figure in the Bible, representing the dangers of unchecked lust, the destructiveness of deceit, and the life-altering consequences of false accusations. Joseph's story is a testament to perseverance and faithfulness, even in the face of injustice. While Potiphar's wife sought to destroy Joseph with her lies, the broader narrative reveals how divine providence ultimately redeemed Joseph and elevated him to a place of honor in Egypt. Through this lens, the story of Potiphar's wife serves as both a moral warning and a demonstration of how God can work through even the darkest circumstances to bring about justice and restoration. The temptation and the false accusation. The story of Potiphar's wife unfolds in Genesis 39, where Joseph, after being sold into slavery by his brothers, is serving as a household manager for Potiphar, an officer of Pharaoh. Joseph's diligence and integrity earn him favor, and Potiphar entrusts him with responsibility over his entire household. However, it is Joseph's physical attractiveness that catches the eye of Potiphar's wife. She becomes infatuated with him and, in a bold move, attempts to seduce him. Day after day, Potiphar's wife propositions Joseph, repeatedly asking him to lie with her. Genesis 39, verse 7. Joseph, a man of strong character and unwavering faith, resists her advances each time. His refusal is rooted not only in loyalty to his master, Potiphar, but also in his commitment to God. Joseph makes it clear that to engage in such a relationship would be a great sin against both Potiphar and God, saying, "How then could I do such a wicked thing and sin against God?" Genesis 39, verse 9. Potiphar's wife, however, is undeterred by Joseph's refusals. Her lust turns into obsession, and she becomes more desperate to have her way with him. One day, when they are alone in the house, she grabs Joseph by his cloak and demands once more that he sleep with her. In a moment of integrity and desperation, Joseph flees from her presence, leaving his cloak in her hands. What follows is a devastating act of deceit. Potiphar's wife, humiliated and enraged by Joseph's rejection, decides to retaliate by falsely accusing him of attempting to rape her. She uses the cloak Joseph left behind as evidence of her fabricated story, presenting it to her husband as proof of Joseph's alleged crime. Potiphar, though likely aware of his wife's dishonesty, chooses to believe her, and Joseph is unjustly thrown into prison. This false accusation nearly destroys Joseph's life, as he goes from a trusted servant to a condemned prisoner. Potiphar's wife, in her lust and spite, exemplifies the destructive power of lies and the devastating impact that false accusations can have on the innocent. Her actions stand as a warning against the dangers of letting selfish desires override moral principles and the harm that can come when truth is abandoned for personal gain. Divine justice and redemption. Although Potiphar's wife's lies seem to succeed in the short term, leading to Joseph's imprisonment, the story does not end there. Joseph, though unjustly punished, continues to demonstrate his faith and integrity, even while in prison. His unwavering commitment to God and his righteous character ultimately lead to his rise to power. Through a series of divinely orchestrated events, Joseph is elevated from a prisoner to the second most powerful man in Egypt, serving as Pharaoh's right-hand man. Joseph's rise from the depths of injustice to a position of great honor is a powerful reminder of how God can bring justice and redemption, even in the most dire circumstances. While Potiphar's wife sought to destroy Joseph's life with her lies, God used that very injustice as a stepping stone for Joseph's ultimate destiny. In time, Joseph would save not only Egypt, but also his own family from famine, fulfilling the purpose God had for him. The contrast between Potiphar's wife and Joseph in this story is stark. On one side, Potiphar's wife represents the dangers of unchecked desire and the destructive power of deceit. Her actions were driven by lust and anger, and her willingness to destroy an innocent man to protect her pride reveals the depth of her moral corruption. On the other side, Joseph stands as a model of integrity and faithfulness. Despite facing false accusations and wrongful imprisonment, he remained steadfast in his commitment to righteousness, trusting that God's justice would prevail. The story of Potiphar's wife is not just about the dangers of lust or false accusations. It also illustrates the larger theme of divine providence. Joseph's unjust suffering was part of a larger plan, one that he could not have understood at the time. While Potiphar's wife acted out of selfishness and spite, God used those very circumstances to position Joseph for a future of greatness and service to others. Thank you for watching. We hope you found these stories as powerful and insightful as we did. Sharing this video can help others learn from these important lessons in biblical history, showing how justice always prevails. Don't forget to share with friends and family, and be sure to check out the next video that's appearing on your screen now.